Hello and welcome to yet another live video here at Tutorac. In this particular live video, we are again going to do some hands-on programming into another very industry-friendly programming technology. This time we have chosen the programming technology to be Flask. Well, let's try to talk about Flask. Well, before that, we need to understand in what scope Flask actually falls into. Flask is actually a backend development framework which is written in Python. So in case if you are somebody who already knows Python and you want to develop web-based applications, then you can use Flask-based APIs in order to create your web-based applications on the backend side. Flask is extremely popular and it is treated like a younger brother of Django in the industry. So as of now, there are two very popular backend frameworks which are written in Python that are very popular in the industry, and these would include Django and Flask. The reason why I have chosen Flask is because Flask is on the easier side and it's very relevantly easy to understand, which is why we have decided to move ahead with Flask in this particular video. In this particular video, we will try to understand what Flask is, how it works, how we can make use of basic API related concepts in the world of Flask, and how we can also create our very first API in the Flask framework. So to create this very first API in Flask, we have multiple options that we can do. But today what I will be doing is just a basic mathematics related operation, which is to convert Celsius into Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit into Celsius. So that is the kind of operation I'm going to write inside my own code. So let's go ahead and see how we can do this. But before that, let me just give you a brief introduction about how and what are the things that we will require. Like I said, Flask is actually a backend development technology which is written in Python. So for getting this running on your own machine, you will require to have Python already installed on your machine. So you can be using a Windows machine or a Linux machine or a Mac machine. In case of Windows, well, Python is easily available on the Windows Microsoft Store. You can go ahead there and download it from there. Otherwise, you can also choose to download it from python.org. In case if you are from Linux or Mac related environments, you might need to go to python.org and install it on your machine. In case if you're on Windows and if you decide to download it from python.org and install it, at the time of or at the very moment when the install wizard is open in your computer, you will see that on the very first screen, there will be two checkboxes at the bottom. One of these checkboxes is going to say add to path. Please make sure that you check that box because that checkbox is initially unchecked. So it is very important for you to check that checkbox so that Python can be running easily on your machine. Let us go ahead and see how we can do these kind of steps onto our own machine. For this, the very first thing that I will do is open my browser and I will write python.org. So let me just open this website. So once this website will open, you can see that there is a section for downloads and then you can download the right version of Python on your computer. So this is something that you will have to do. So make sure that you download the right version of Python on your computer. And in case if you're using Mac or Windows based machines, make sure that you have a right configuration of the Python's software installed on your machine. That means x84 or ARM based chip. Okay, so now that you download it and install it on your machine, you can actually see whether it has been installed or not with the help of your terminal application. So in case if you're using Windows, you can also make use of the Windows PowerShell application. But in case if you're on Mac or in case if you're on Linux, terminal should do the job. So I will open terminal. This is my terminal. Because Python is already installed on my machine, I can just write Python 3 space dash v. So it says Python 3.10.7. In case if you notice, I have written Python 3 space dash v. If you are on Windows, you can just write Python space dash v. Especially on a Mac and Linux based environments, because we download Python 3 onto our computers, a lot of times Python is not recognized by our computer, but Python 3 is recognized. In case if Python is not working in your computer after installation, please check if it works with Python 3. In most cases, it won't work with Python and will work with Python 3. So in case if it is working with Python 3, that means everything is working as expected. Okay, great. Now let us go ahead and see how we can create our very first Flask application. Because Flask is a backend application or a backend development framework, it will also be dealing with request and response. So we will try to create a REST-based system in which we will try to inculcate and accept a few requests from the user and then return some sort of response to the user. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. For this, I'm going to follow a few interesting steps in order to create our Python application. So the very first thing that I will do is I will go to the location where I want to create my application. Okay, so I have a folder called as Tutorac on my computer on which I currently did navigate to in order to create my Python application. So here I will write mkdir, which means make directory. Please note I'm using all the shell commands. This might not work in PowerShell, so you might need to write relevant and equivalent PowerShell commands if you choose to go ahead with your terminal. Otherwise, you can just go to that location and create a folder manually, and then inside that created folder, you can also start running your applications commands that I'm going to write on the screen on any terminal of your choice. So I will write mkdir and then I will write Tutorac Flask app. Okay, Tutorac Flask app. Then I will go inside this folder. Now I'm inside this folder. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to install the dependencies for running Flask onto our computer. Okay. Now, there is one interesting thing about Python projects. There is a concept of something called as virtual environment. What is virtual environment? To bring this into perspective, let me try to give you an example of what I am going to do right now. Because I want to install Flask on my computer so that my application can run with Flask, I have to install the dependency of Flask. Now, if I install the dependency of Flask, it will be installed globally on my computer. When I say globally, it means it is going to be installed for all the Python applications that can run on my computer. That is what global installation would mean. But I want to, let's say, do something like this, that I want to keep my dependencies separate for every single Python project. So for all those projects, I want to keep the dependencies separate. I will have to create something called as virtual environment. And that is what I'm going to create right now. So a virtual environment is basically an environment which is exactly the mock of Python on your computer, which is going to make sure that all the dependencies of your current project stay separate from the global installation of Python on your computer. So that is what we are going to create right now. So we will be creating a virtual environment for our Python application that we will be using for running Flask. So to do this, I will have to write Python 3. Again, if you're on Windows, you can just write Python space -m. Then I will write venv, where V stands for virtual and then env stands for environment, followed by /venv. As soon as I press return, you will see that something happened and it did take some amount of time as well. So if I write an ls command, you will see that it has now created a folder called as venv on my Tutorac Flask app folder. Okay, so now this particular folder venv, it is going to contain a few files that we can use in order to activate this virtual environment. So suppose if I show you, let's say if I write cd, or I can just write cdvenv, okay, and then inside it there's a folder called as bin. If I do an ls, you will see activate.ps1, activate.csh, activate.fish, pip, and so on and on. We are seeing many things right now over here. So what are these things? So here, all the files that stand or that start with the word activate, they're basically scripts that are written inside Python in order to activate your virtual environment for running. So because I am using a Mac-based system, I can just make use of the activate command. But in case if you're using Windows, especially if you're using PowerShell, then you'll have to use the activate.ps1 command. Okay, so this is one difference which is going to come between Windows and Mac and Linux-based machines. So I'll repeat it. In case if you're on Mac or Linux, you need to make use of the activate command. But in case if you're on Windows, you need to make use of the activate.ps1 command. Let us go ahead and start to activate our program. So to activate our program, here I will write source. Okay, I need to get out of this folder. Okay, now I will write cd. Nope, I will write source, source, source /venv /bin /activate. As soon as I press enter, you will see that there is a small venv which is written at the left side of my program, which is signifying that I am currently inside a virtual environment. So my virtual environment is now activated, and now anything that I do with my application, it is going to make sure that it uses the virtual environment that we have created for running that sort of activity. Okay, nice. Now let us go ahead and try to install Flask onto our computers, this particular application. So for doing this, it is very simple. We just need to write pip install Flask. Make sure you write Flask with a capital F, and I'll press enter. As soon as I press enter, it should install something, and you can see that an installation actually did happen. All right, that means Flask is now present on our machine. Okay, so now the next thing that I will do is I will open my Visual Studio Code to start writing my code in Python. So let me just open a folder. We made this inside A, inside Tutorac, no, inside self, inside Tutorac, and then over here, Tutorac Flask app. So this is our application. This is our application. You can see that there is a venv. If I go inside this lib, you will see that Flask is now installed. Okay, that is great. Now I will write my file as hello.py. Okay, so all the Python files will take the extension of .py. Okay, so we have written the very first application, or we have written our very first Python file. Now let us try to run it. Okay, so to run this, we need to make sure that we write this boilerplate code that Flask actually provides. So let us go ahead and see what this boilerplate is. Because it's our very first time, I actually want to navigate you through the Flask's official documentation so that you also understand how you can start writing a Flask application even if you've forgotten at any point of time. So I will write Flask document or Flask tutorial. Let's say I just write Flask tutorial. There is an official website of Flask, which is this one. And yep, this is the one that I was looking for. So you can see there is something called as minimal application. So this is how we start to write our Flask application. And this is exactly what I was looking for. So what we will do is we will write import Flask from Flask. Okay, and then I will write, no, I think I have written it in the wrong way. It should be from Flask, from Flask, import Flask. Okay, and then I will write app equals Flask underscore API. I hope this is how it's written. Nope, it's written with name. So write underscore name and so on. Okay. So now this app is going to contain the entire information of our backend application. In case if you are somebody who knows how to use Express.js in creating JavaScript based backends, you would have done something similar in Express as well, right? You would have actually required Express onto our file and then called the Express function and stored its value in a variable like app. And then that app variable will be denoting our entire backend application. Okay, so we have app present over here. Now we will write @app.route. Let's say I write anything, such as slash, followed by a function, hello Tutorac. Say, okay, so I've written my very first Flask application. So what I'm doing over here is I have done nothing but actually created a very simple route. This route is actually at the very start of our application. That means on whatever port it runs. And then there is a function that is called as hello Tutorac, which is supposed to run every single time a request hits the route, which is at slash. Let us try to run our Python Flask application. For this, I will write Flask followed by dash app followed by hello and then run. HELLO, then run. So as soon as I do this, it says there is a problem. Okay, let's see what it is saying. I think I might be missing something. Let me just go ahead and check. It is Flask space dash dash app. Okay, there is one dash that I missed. It should be double dash app. So as soon as I write this, you can see that my code is running on localhost 5000. So here, dash dash app is trying to tell you that I'm trying to run a Flask app. Hello is the name of the file that I want to run, which has my Flask application, and run is the command to actually make it run. Okay, so that is why we have written each of these words. Now let us go ahead and see if it is actually working. For this, I will open my browser again and I will write localhost 5000. As soon as I do this, you see access to localhost was denied. And okay, if that's what it says, let's go ahead and see in Thunder Client. If that's what we're getting, localhost 5000 slash. You can see that we get hello from Tutorac. Over here, if I add a slash, it doesn't work on our browser for some reason, but that's not what we actually wanted to do anyway. We just wanted you to show that an API call is actually working fine onto our Flask application. That's great. Next thing that I want to do is I want to understand how I can take inputs from the user. So we know that whenever we deal with applications, especially around backend engineering, then we have to deal with the request and response. So as a request, we can send the information to our Python application that what is the type of input, that means is it in Celsius or is it in Fahrenheit, and then convert that Celsius into Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit into Celsius or vice versa. That is what we are going to do. Okay, so let us go ahead and see how we can do this. Okay, so firstly, I will create a function. In Python, I'll have to declare this function at the top. I'll write convert temperature. Convert temperature, which is going to take two things, is Celsius, C-L-C-I-U. I hope my spelling is not incorrect. Okay, it was incorrect. Sorry about that. And then value. Okay, if the value is already in Celsius, then we need to convert it to Fahrenheit, convert to F, otherwise convert C. Okay, so something like this is going to happen, right? So let us go ahead and see the formula on the internet to understand how we can actually convert Celsius to Fahrenheit and vice versa. So to do this, I'll just do a basic search. Let's say Celsius to Fahrenheit formula. Let's go ahead and see what the formula is. So a Fahrenheit is equal to Celsius multiplied by 9 by 5 plus 32. Okay, so we will write, let's say over here, converted value, right? That's what we want. So converted value is equals to 0. Let's say 0. Over here, I will write converted value or converted value is equals to Celsius multiplied by, which is value, multiplied by 9 by 5. So 9 by 5 plus 32 plus 30. This is my converted value when I want to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit. Otherwise, I will write converted value is equals to, over here, Fahrenheit minus 32. So value minus 32, value minus 32 multiplied by 5 by 9. Something like this. So this will give us the actual converted values. And lastly, I'll return it. So return converted value. Simple as that. Now, let us go ahead and try to modify this function in order to create our API. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's say I'll write it convert, okay? And then I want to take information from query parameters. Let's say here I will write temperature. Okay, over here I will write. So I want two things, whether it is currently Celsius or whether it is Fahrenheit. So I will write, let's say, temperature type is equals to request. So I'll have to make use of request over here. Request, and here I'll write request dot query string, and here I will write temperature, or let's say input temp, or input temp is fine, or input unit is fine, I guess. Input unit followed by in the value, right? So temperature, or let's say value, is gonna be double, or I'll just write request dot query string input or just value. Okay, now if the temperature type is actually equals to Celsius, SIUS, if it is actually equal to Celsius, then we need the converted value, right? So let's say we write converted value 0 for now. Then over here I will write converted value is convert equals to convert temperature to followed by the value. So we need the pass the value over here like this. Otherwise, converted value is equals to convert temperature false and then value. Okay. So this thing can actually be controlled by writing something like this. Okay. So over here, converted value is going to be convert temperature. Then, and the first argument we will pass like temperature type is equal to Celsius. Okay. So this is also something that we can write. And lastly, we will try to return the response or converted value. So I need JSONify. So there is something called as JSONify, which is given directly by Flask. So we will use this function to serialize our data. That means currently our data is going to be a Python related object. Now we want to send it back to the user. So we want to convert it into a JSON. I'll write JSONify followed by something like this. Value is equals to converted value. Okay, followed by 200. Something like this. Okay, let us try and see how this can be or how this is working. Okay, so for now I will also print the value. Okay, I'll also print the value. Let's try to rerun it. So rerunning our application over here. Now I will go to convert. I think that's the right, yeah. Okay, so we have input unit. So I'll go to query. I'll write input underscore unit. Let's say Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit, and value is, let's say, 212. If I click on send, I see some sort of error coming up on the screen. What is this error? It says, okay, where is it? In line number 17, which is present over here. Okay, so there is something which is given as an error. Okay, so it is saying that the byte indices must be integers or slices, not string. That means the way we are accessing this is actually a problem. So we need to make sure that we have to make this work absolutely fine. So let us see what we are actually getting as request.queryString. Okay, let's try to check that. For this, for now, I'll comment it out and I will write return hi, for example, just hi. Okay, here I will write request.queryString. Let's try to read on it. Go to new request, click on send. So it doesn't print anything, right? As you can see, it doesn't print anything. So how can we actually know that how we are getting this request? Well, technically, we have to add it probably over here, but let me still see. I'll just get it confirmed from over here. Okay, let's try to see how the requests are being handled inside the Flask application. So over here, if I scroll down a little bit, not what we need. This is also not what we need. And this is what we need probably. Okay, so you can see that the request function or the request object is not actually used inside it. Okay, it is not currently used inside it. Let's say we want to access query parameters. I'll write Flask query params. I'll make sure I use this one. And over here, it is used as request.args.get. So we will try to replace that information by writing request.args.get. Okay, so we had over here input underscore type. I hope this is correct. Request.args.get. Okay, so right now, at least we are writing it just the way it is expecting us to. Okay, now secondly, over here also I will write request.args.get. Okay, now let's try to move this line. Let's try to check what we are getting. Okay, so I will rerun my application, click on send, and now we see a different type of an error, and this error is coming in line number 12. Okay, let's see what is in line number 12. So this is what we are seeing in line number 12. Okay, so currently there is a problem with our value, I think. So I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is that the value that we are getting over here, which in this case we have written as 212, it is not coming as a number. Instead, it is coming as a string. Now we can't perform arithmetic operations on strings, which is why it is giving us an error. So we need to make sure that we pass it into a format which is a more acceptable format, which is going to be a number. So we'll have to check how we can do that in Python. So let's say convert string to double in Python. The reason why I'm trying to use a lot of internet is that I actually want to show you that in case when you're also stuck somewhere, how you can actually just make use of the internet in order to move ahead in your progress. Okay, so we want to convert a string into double. So I think it should just be a double based conversion. So let's go and see. So, okay, so we can make use of float. That is great. Let's make use of float itself. So I'll write float and convert it just like this. Let's go ahead and see what we get. Restarting our server. Click, oops, I closed it by mistake. Click on send, and this time we see that 212 is equal to 100. All right, now we need to make sure that we fix something. So we'll have to write it like this. Save it. Let's try to rerun it. And now we get value as 100. That is great. Let's try to change the information. Let's say this time I want Celsius, CELSIUS. Click on send. Let me see. I think I wrote a wrong spelling. CELSIUS. CELSIUS. That is correct. So that means I must have written it wrong somewhere else. CELSIUS. Okay. So copy it. Click on send. It's still giving me 100, which in my opinion is absolutely incorrect, right? So we have to understand why this is happening like this, right? Why this is happening like this. So the one reason can be, let's say if I write is Celsius is equals to this thing and value is equals to value. Let's try to rerun my app. Click on send. We still see as 100. Now, why is it actually coming as 100? We'll have to debug our application in order to find why it is coming as 100. So now I will start debugging my application. It is a Python-based debugging. So I'll go and select Flask and my app.py file. So now I'm trying to debug my Python file in order to understand why it is still giving me 100 when I'm trying to convert a Celsius into a Fahrenheit. Okay, let's see. There's something wrong over here. Let's try to debug it again. It says could not import app. Okay, let me just try to close my Visual Studio Code and try to open it again. Okay, so now I have opened it again. Let's try to debug my application. Okay. Oh, I know why this is happening, because it is expecting a app.py file, but I'm trying to run a hello.py file, which is why this is happening. If I only change its name to app.py, it's going to work absolutely fine. So let me start. Oops, I chose the wrong option. Start debugging with Python debugger on a Flask application and app.py. Yep, now it is running absolutely fine. So now what I'll do is I'll make a breakpoint over here, and then I'll click on send. Now you can see the code has actually stopped over here. So the value that we have is 212.0, and then once we get inside this function, we see that is Celsius is actually false. Now why is that? Why is Celsius actually false? Because there has to be some sort of a mistake, right? There has to be some sort of a problem in terms of verifying that if this value is actually equal to Celsius or not. So let's see what is the Boolean output of this particular thing. So I'll copy this and then I will paste it over here. Okay, is Celsius. And then over here, I'll just pass is Celsius. Okay, let's see what we actually get. We'll try to debug it again. So debugging it again, I'll click on send, and now you can see that is Celsius is actually false. Now, why is that? Why are we when we are trying to actually equivalent whenever we are trying to see if two things are actually equal, why are things not getting equal? So over here, if you see temperature type, which is written as input type, it is coming as none. That means there is something wrong in the way we are actually sending it. So input unit over here is actually input type, which is why we actually got our error. So we'll have to fix it, right? So let's go ahead and fix it over here. So I'll make this input unit, save it, and restart my app. Okay, I need to make this app again because I changed the name of my file, app run. Okay, so now if I go and send it, you see that I get 413.6, which is correct. Let me see a smaller value like 0. Click on send and I get 32. Great. Let's see for the information of Fahrenheit in 0. So Fahrenheit. I keep forgetting the spelling, so I'm not so good at it. Fahrenheit, I'll click on send and I see minus 17.7777778. So this is how we can actually create our very first Python Flask API. So in this particular video, we actually tried to create our very first Python API, which is written in Flask, that did something very simple like converting temperatures from Celsius to Fahrenheit and vice versa. In this particular video, we also try to cover and understand that in case if we are stuck at something, how we can make Google or any search engine as our best friend and get the answers that we are looking for. So that's pretty much it from my end. Let's go ahead and look in the comment sections in case if anybody has a question. So I actually don't see any questions over here, but in case if you have liked the session, I hope you can put a like on this video and subscribe to our channel. So we actually do these kind of videos almost daily. And in case if this kind of videos interest you, it would be my humble request that you subscribe to our channel and come here and see more videos like this. So until the next video that I shoot, I will see you the next time. And until then, stay connected with us at Tutorac.